Today I'm going to show you like an experiment that I did yesterday night, which is basically based on this X, the new thing now, from Darren. Pretty much everyone knows Darren in the DevOps space. He's the creator of K3S, worked at Rancher, now SUSE. But basically, he was politely complaining about the fact that sometimes in your CI pipelines, you need to have your Git context, particularly in this case, because Go uses that if it is available in order to like pull some metadata of the VCS, like commit, branch, some other things. And he basically says that if you copy the Git folder to your Docker file, this is slower and has a lot of issues, which I agree with. So I was thinking on how there would be a way in Dagger to improve this scenario, which no other tool can currently provide. And I came up with what I think is a nice solution. Initially, I did it on user space, so you're gonna see it in a minute that I hacked it in a pipeline. But this is something that could potentially be part of the engine of the SDKs. So hopefully, if there's enough traction, by the way, I need to create an issue or a discussion for this. We could get it merged soon. But let me start by providing some context. I have a very basic Go application here that basically reads the VCS information from the native Go package, and then it basically prints the build info. So if I build this with a Go build, and then I run the binary, you are going to see that I have this information, right? So I have the VCS key, the revision, the time, the modified, false. This basically tells us if there is any dirty files in my current state. So yeah, you have all this information here, which is very useful. You can also inspect it if you do like, I think it's Go build dash, there's a flag here, A maybe. No, there's a way to do it through the Go CLI that you can see it as well. Cool. So what happens, like one thing that I did is I created a Docker file, which is initially what I did is like I asked ChatGPT, how do I create a Docker file to include the VCS information of a Go project. You have the link here if you want to see what my prompt was, and it basically came up with a very wrong Docker file using LD flags to inject those variables, which is not what I wanted, right? But in any case, and after that, I looked into Docker's official repo on how to build like a curated, I would say, or like recommended Go Docker file pipeline, and this is what I initially got, which is, it copies the Go mod. I don't have a Go sum, so that's why I don't include it. Then it does Go mod download. To be honest, I think there's better ways now of doing this instead of like fiddling with the run caches. You can just like inject, since we are using the new build-kit stuff. You can basically add a cache volume, and avoid doing all this. Like the whole layer ordering. I think that's a thing from the past. It's quite complex to translate this complexity to the user, but yeah, in any case, this is the recommended way that the Docker team basically gives it. And then, as you can see, it copies the code. Then I have from scratch, basically like a multi-stage build. And then I copy the binary, and then I put it on the other image. So I'm going to run this. I have it here. I think it's Docker build. Yeah. So I'm going to run this build, and then I'm going to output the last layer, which is Scratch, into an out folder. So basically, you're going to see that this builds, and then I have an out folder here. So if I do out and the name of the binary, you're going to see that I don't have all the VCS information included, right? And that is because when I'm copying the files, I'm only transferring the Go files to my context, right? So I don't have any Git data there. So that's why the Go basically build chain is not able to like pull that information from my my build chain. And now this is what happens when someone needs to include that. And this is particularly why I understand Darren was complaining. You basically need to include your whole Git, folder into the context in order for this to work. By the way, I don't know why this doesn't work. So I initially tried to do this, to copy the folder. Maybe someone knows in chat why this particularly doesn't work. I actually had to do this, I had to specify the destination folder. But as far as I understand, this should work. I don't know why. I don't know if it is a bug or what. Anyways, so if you copy this folder, now you're going to realize something a bit funny. If you see my current directory, so if I do the, my current directory is basically, I don't know, a few Ks, like, I don't know, like 50K altogether, But if I run this again, Docker build, you're going to see something strange, which is it's transferring 1 gigabyte, it's still increasing 2 gigabytes of context, right? Now it's copying the same thing. So it took, I don't know, 8 seconds, 10 seconds. Now it's building. And now I finally have my my stuff there. So if I do out Dagger test, you can see that I have all the correct VCS information in my binary using Docker build. But why is it that it is transferring that much information, right? So I, on purpose, like left that out when I did the DU, which is that you can see that my Git history actually is like 2.5 gigabytes, size. And this is because, of course, I on purpose I actually created some large files in this Git repo. But this is something that also happens with any repo where you have like either a lot of files or like big large files. If I do a git log, right, stat, you're going to see that here I have files that this file, for example, that I added and removed, which is like a 2 gigabyte file, which basically increases your Git history size, right? So you need to keep track of all this and whatnot. And this is effectively like as your Git history becomes more complex and bigger and so on, then your builds are going to take more. And each time that you have to send this context to the build is going to take all this time, which is quite a pain to handle and to maintain. So entering Dagger, I was thinking, okay, how could we solve this natively using Dagger? And the cool thing is that generally what you want to do, actually, Dagger has a very nice feature where the SDK allows you to pull information from Git directly. There's a Git command in Dagger. You can say like client.git, and then you specify a URL, and that's basically going to pull that from that URL, and then you have it as a directory, so you can like basically add it to any of your pipelines. And then I was thinking, hey, Git, for once is a decentralized thing that I could potentially run a server of my Git repository, right? And it would be awesome if I could tell Dagger, hey, instead of like copying the context like this, just use my local directory as a Git server, pull the code from there as any other CI currently does it, right? If you go to GitHub Actions and you use the checkout action, what the checkout action is going to do is going to do a shallow clone of your repo because it doesn't want to pull the whole history, every time. There might be cases where you want to have the whole history for some specific reasons, but generally people don't use that. It's a shallow clone because it's fast. It's way faster than cloning the whole thing. So what you would want in Dagger is the same thing, right? In any CI platform. So basically the experience of building, your app is the same locally and with any other checkout logic that you can find in any other CI systems. So based on some work that some other team members like Alex did on services, I came up with this idea of creating, basically, when I run my application, I create a Git server out of my local repository. Then from that Git server, I basically fetch which files are not committed, right? So are either like in the work tree or staged. So I know which files I need to copy manually to the pipeline because those are the files I effectively changed. And then I make that server listen on a Unix socket, right? This is using all Go modules and Go code. So I start my server in listening to a Unix socket. Then what I do is I start a service container in Dagger, mounting that Unix socket, and then basically proxying that Unix socket through TCP listening. And that is because git clone doesn't allow connecting to a Unix socket. So you need to connect to a TCP endpoint. So that's why I'm using this proxy, Unix socket to TCP. And then what I only do, thanks to all the work that has been happening on the services side, I just do a client.git, which is, this is a regular Dagger operation. I basically specify the host name of that service that I started. And then I can fetch, I need to also specify this flag, which is service host. This basically tells Dagger to wait for that service to start before running this operation. I'm basically keeping the Git directory because that's something that the Go builder chain needs in order to inject all the data. And once I have this, I basically use my pipeline regularly. What I'm doing here is basically adding that Git directory to a folder. Then I'm using that as a work there. I'm running a Git status, so you're going to be able to see if there are any modified files. And then I just basically build my app and export the binary to my local directory so you can see it. So now that I have this, I can do go run Dagger git test, which is a submodule inside my project to actually run the CI. And this is mostly because I like having two different Go mod files, one for CI only and the other one for the app, so I don't pollute the app with the Dagger code. So if I run this, you're going to see that. Let me see if there's actually a transfer. So yeah, so I modified the Docker file before because I show you the change for the git commit. So the only modified file inside my container was the Docker file. And then if you see here at the top, the only thing transferred is the Docker file and the test binary that I did before. So it only transferred 1 megabyte because of that binary. And then basically it cloned the repository from my local machine. So here, as you can see here, it basically cloned my local machine Git repository in the container. It's a shallow clone, so that's super fast. That's why it didn't need to clone 2 gigabytes because it's doing a shallow clone. And then it's basically building the binary and outputting in my local directory. So this is the binary. And if I do Dagger git test, I have all my VCS information here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's an experiment that I wanted to share with everyone. I would like to start a discussion in our Dagger community to see if it makes sense to include this as a part of the SDK / engine logic, because I think it's going to be amazing if you can actually do this Git, maybe with a specific name. So instead of doing host name, you can do, I don't know, git.local, and that is going to reference your local directory, and basically do all this service heavy lifting internally ourselves in the engine, so you don't have to do it yourself. Only specifying a flag would be enough. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And now I'm open to any questions.